ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Toll Podcast. I am your host, Onvermel, greeted here today with your favorite green man, Zacta.
Hola.
I was going to say, I think first off, I think this is the record for the latest time in the day to record a podcast.
I mean, that's not my fault, but...
What can I say? I was busy chatting with the fan, not a singular fan.
Yeah, it's because...
There's only one, but he was really effective. So, shout out to you, General Pitbull, my buddy.
You know what you did.
You know exactly what you did, you son of a Mwaka. But we're not here to talk about the fan base. No. Although, Ryder, if you're listening, thanks for the sub.
I mean, you've already said more than I thought there would be to talk about the fan base.
That's about it. That's like the whole spiel. But what I was actually was thinking about in the last couple days, especially with recent mock I was building, is parts that are simultaneous, like, useful parts of mocking, annoying parts to mock with, and just general thoughts about certain parts. Because for me, one thing I've noticed, especially in later years, is I'm having more and more sockets break. Like, not like older sockets that break at the top of the Technic, where the Technic axle is, not so much the actual socket part. Because I've had like 2 or 3 old purple ones break in that specific location now. And then, of course, anyone in the Technic or Lego BIONICLE community, I think, would know that the Technic axle connector, I call it Nokama hands, because I'm most associated with Troga Nokama with her hands. That piece that has the 2 axle connections is notoriously bad at breaking.
I have noticed in the last few years, I've been known that I've acquired cracked ones that I am cracking them more often.
I find those, for me, I break about 1 per year.
I think it's why, and actually the mock I'm fiddling with right now, I wanted to get out of his leg because it was the only point of connection attaching the knee to the lower leg.
Yeah, when it's the only point of connection.
And he has a pipe in his leg, so there's a real stiff to move. And I'm like, you just feel the whole thing kind of bend, and you're like, it pops out, and like, this is just going to crack this piece. I've got to come up with a better method.
Yeah, I would say definitely in later years I've actually worked around basically trying to have that as the only point of articulation. Or not articulation, but connection. For those who might have seen the channel, the short with Stelvex, or that black and bluish mock I made. He uses a lot of old Technic kind of like lift arms with support in metallic blue. And in violet as well. And those pieces specifically, I do know like to break a lot. Especially the metallic blue ones, like metallic silver. And so when I was building him, I had to make sure that, like, okay, if I'm using this, I'm having several points of connection so that it's not all in one. So in theory, they shouldn't be breaking with posing and moving around. They probably still will at some point, but this might seriously make it take longer. And just that general idea that because Lego doesn't make big parts anymore, and eventually parts do break, it's like, given enough time, like in 20 years from now, sockets, for all we know, might become really hot commodities because they keep breaking. Like, don't get me wrong, there'll be certain sockets probably never be a hot commodity, like any ones that came with the Rockshi. Dark gray, but like anyone that came with the Rockshi, those are so easy to come by because Rockshi was so mass produced. But if you have like yellow and
but if they're all cracking, and green only really came with,
I think only with the Rockshi.
Green with the Rockshi. I think you could and Liwanuba.
True.
But if they start cracking, you're going to have a serious deficit of green.
True, but I'm thinking especially like it's like yellow, purple, turquoise, dark gray, like
the
some
ones
of the
that
less
were never
common colors. Like
yes.
Lime, I actually need to check prices of lime because I'm kind of curious if lime sockets do generally go for more than others just because they're prone to breaking.
At least newer ones were, because the Nui Rama and the Vizrak did not have that problem.
But the Nui Rama ones are prone just as bad as breaking as like old purple sockets where they'll break at the top.
Yes.
Which I remember hearing that like old BIONICLE parts were more brittle, like the sockets are brittle, and I was like, I remember originally I only ever had one that broke on me. I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Like, funny, I recall this happening, when the line with the Mari came out, and then, more importantly, when they changed the mold entirely.
Yeah, but as I've mocked and built with stuff more, I'm finding that the older sockets, like the ones from like Throwbot era and such, I'm having more of those break on me lately. But only specifically at the top, where that axle connection is.
I would say, looking at my collection, not because I've broken any, it's just I've acquired a few that were cracked or broken, or I may have noticed one had cracked at some point. I do think it would be like, a baby blue socket,
Although,
a red one.
now that I'm thinking, because it was a purple socket that broke, it was probably one used on Dentar. That might have had a little electric force in
A little too much weight.
Dentar also wasn't the what's called
Legal.
well, he was legal, but I feel like there was some, I know some sockets in him that were only had like the one point of connection, so if you're pushing too hard in a section, would have put a lot of stress in that part. But the worst thing about those sockets is those are useful. Like, arguably speaking, the socket piece, let's be honest, is the number one most useful Bionicle piece.
As someone who is clearly, expanded from recoloring a set to
the old part swap,
trying to basically avoid using any standard limb pieces in that limb specific spot, sockets are immensely useful for just building limbs, and I've realized now that I have them to spare, they are the number one body filler piece, especially when you almost refuse to use system parts in your mocs.
They're a good size, but also like with using them as like your
versatile shape too.
Well, versatile shape. They got connection points on the horizontal and vertical. They got
on the diagonal,
and they're specifically all axle connections. So for stability, that's alright. They come in plenty of parts, and as you were mentioning with making legs, you can extend them pretty much as long as you want, depending how you fill the two sockets. Or because it's only compared to a regular upper leg, it's essentially half of that. You can basically design the second half of that limb, like upper limb, so that you can have a different sort of either axle or ball connection. I mean, like it's super versatile. It comes in pretty much every Technic color you have, like any color that you could think that Bionicle has made. It came in a socket: turquoise, purple, yellow, dark gray, light gray, new dark gray, black, heat orange, red, dark green, green, blue, dark blue, brown, other shade of brown.
I think
black,
we get the idea.
White. The only really sand blue, sand green. The only really color that did not come in that I wish it did is the very light bluish gray, or as the Bionicle community might know as Thok white,
which is actually kind of interesting because even the very limited brown that they had it.
And it's like if Thok white was the color used for Metru, it definitely would have, I think, been used at some point.
But you got to remember the Aniwa brown, or that
was
only used on the Rahaga.
But let's be honest, if basically Metru had used a darker white, like all the other colors did, that probably would have carried over to Thrakshi.
Canonically would have, not canonically,
I think, honestly,
aesthetically would have worked really well, giving you dark.
Don't get me wrong, the regular white with dark gray looks super sleek, sharp, and just aesthetically appealing, especially with the blue eyes. But I wish, because Thok is the only mock to use that white color, it's a little bit annoying. So there's not a whole... I mean, there was one Technic set that used it, but it only had limited parts. But essentially, any color that you would want to build with Bionicle, the socket came in that color. And even like it's coming in some new colors later in years, like new brown. Eventually, the first set to have it was a Chima set on the tip of the trunk. I don't know if that's the only set to have it, but it came in new brown. It eventually came back in yellow again with like a Lego Movie said it came in like an azure, like a light azure sort of color. So it's like it's even coming newer colors with the new sockets. Not many, but it's still coming in socket colors. And
sockets, especially when you had those odd rare colors, sockets was the one piece you almost were guaranteed to get in that color.
Well, it's the easiest way. It's like, okay, I don't know how to make, because on a stand, even if we just
not in a mocking sense, and just availability sense. Purple, turquoise. They didn't have a lot of options, but they did have the socket.
Sand blue and sand green are in that same
Which, again, when you're building a custom
tan
mock, or even a mock of a standard build, sockets are one of the key things you need.
For my essentially self-mock, not the one that I use on the channel, but for my avatar and such, and Onvermel, as I have a couple videos with him, most of his body is just made out of sockets. Like, his torso has, like, I think 6 sockets. His arms each use, like, 2 sockets. And then his legs use sockets, like, because, let's be honest, I was trying to make it as purple as I can. That's why the body was designed as it was, because it was the right size, and I was used to make it mostly purple. And so it's like, let's be honest, that is the number one most useful Bionicle piece to build mocks, period. I mean, it's a system where you have to, make posability. It's like, it's a given, right? Obviously. And when you think about other useful parts, pretty much comes down to any small Technic piece, like short flat lift arms, shorter axles, pin axles. But on the reverse side, when it comes down to Bionicle parts, because let's be honest, at this point, we've probably used every Bionicle part many times in mocs at some point.
I can't say off the top of my head a Bionicle part that I just have never used.
I don't think there's any parts that we've never
Granted,
used.
It might, if I do, it'd be more like their head.
Okay, well, let's be honest. We know what the most useless part is. The Roxy spine.
The rock.
Because it is only connectable to the Roxy back piece.
And you can wedge it sufficiently between the black Roxy's staff.
Same with the blue ones, you can.
Oh, blue, huh? I never tried. But...
You can do with both those, but
it's a pretty limited use.
It's very limited, and let's be honest, everyone always has way too many. It only comes in silver in the 3 shades, except for the one that comes in white.
Even the hockey body seems very useless, and yet...
At first.
I think, given that I have probably at least half a dozen or more, I think currently I have one loose one.
This is the thing about the hockey body. It's not useless. It's awkward.
Though... Because
it has axle connections, it's got pin connections, it's large, so making larger mocs it is useful. But it's just because the back of it kind of bulges out a tiny bit. It's not perfectly flush.
It has like all the right bulges, but they all bulge in the wrong... They could have all... It could have worked very nicely, but it's just like it bulges out below, bulges out sideways, comes in... It's just like...
The Technic hockey ball, I'm thinking like specifically the back where it has like the tiny groove
and then there's also that bit that's not quite flush.
It doesn't fit mathematically.
Yes. But despite the fact that I probably only have one official character who might have that body currently in his build.
Is that Venom? Or
I think Artaka still has the green one in his store. I could be wrong. I did tweak him, but Venom had originally for his lower legs.
Yeah.
But... in the end, it always gets phased out because it was an awkward piece. But, like, it's used on my bunk bed. It's used on the throne for one of my toe.
It's a great, if you want to just, like, build something up
big
quickly.
Chunky part.
Because the only two things I can think of I have mine used on is, currently my non-finished Dentarnus feet, which are great for that. You know, they're nice, solid pieces that have a lot of different connection points, so great for that. And a Skokti's bike. It was basically, I think I used 2 of them as like the base of the bike.
I feel like I might have used one on a bike too. I have 2 bikes. I know one doesn't, but I'm not sure the other. That one's not the one that
for the green guy.
Yeah, that guy whose name escapes me. I think there's an H in
so
there.
It's like something like that. It's like okay, it's not. It's awkward, but it's not useless.
And if you're determined enough, you can use it. It just. I think I only have a black one currently to spare.
Pretty much, I would say
use that.
You can generally tell how useful a piece is depending how many connection points there are. Because typically, like...
Not even that, it's what kind of connection point. Because I would like to bring up a piece that might... Think of it as a burp. But I love working with it.
For those who don't know, a burp is a rock called Big Ugly Rock Piece.
Basically, you know, the LEGO community kind of frowns upon using big predetermined pieces, which, let's be honest, is Bionicle in that shell.
It basically can very much limit what you can do. You know, it's like using just big pre-molded parts looks like cheaping out to like fans, which I mean sometimes yes, I can agree.
But like a pre-established part that I like to use, and I tend to use it for what it's for, is the hockey chest armor, and
that's become a really nice piece.
I used it a lot. I always had a hard time flowing it, and then it just faded out of my memory. But then it's had a resurgence. I do not have enough of those. But it has a central axle. Not a pin connection, an axle, so it stays in place. Because some pieces, like, are really fun to work with, but they lack that... They look nice, but they don't...
fit. Or they just have a hole in the wrong place, you
like
know.
A Roxy foot. It works well. It looks nice. I would say it's a great thigh piece. But because of how it attaches, it's really hard to... It's got pins in the right direction. And yes, a Taraga hand works to get the axle in the right way, but sometimes it's too long.
Yeah. That's kind of a problem with a lot of the feet in general. But for me, it's like, with the hockey chest piece, one thing I find really interesting about it is like, you know, so it was designed in 2003, I believe, for the hockey Technic Wave.
Yes.
And how the math of how wide it is and where the pin connections are fits perfectly with Bionicle chest pieces from 2006.
Yes.
Like, at first I remember getting that chest piece and always thinking it was too awkward.
7 studs wide, I believe that is.
7 wide. At the axle, it was like, even like the double pin highs, like, it fits perfectly over like a Paraka body, and it's like I remember when we first started having them, they were kind of useless. It was like
Another perk
they were just awkward.
is that axle that I mentioned.
It's long.
It's like 2, I think maybe even 3 studs long. So it serves a double purpose. It's great for attaching a head while also connecting to the body. It's just like
And as well, that piece comes in like 5 colors if I'm correct.
white, blue, red, green. Yeah.
And black.
Oh, and black.
So 5 solid colors. So really the only color you're missing from a Toa team is the brown.
Which you could substitute with black if desperate.
No. We remember. Oh wait, no, there's no yellow orange.
No.
Wait, it comes in yellow, doesn't it? Doesn't George Hanatumaki use yellow chest?
Actually, you might be right.
Or am I thinking he has a different
I was
chest?
going to say, I know there's yellow shoulder armors, but I can't actually
no, he
picture...
comes in yellow.
I can't picture one in yellow, but...
I know it.
Guess
I
that's-
swear his Hanatumaki has a yellow one.
He might have a black with yellow underneath it around.
No, because he's black and he's yellow and brown. Like his whole Mox bear is just yellow and brown. I think it does come in yellow.
It does feel like it would come in, but I just can't personally picture it.
Yeah, things like it's one of those. It's like trying to picture for me a red hockey body. I never owned one, so trying to picture one was just like seems right, but it seems wrong.
But red was easier because there was the standard one that had the red Borak call weapons too.
Yeah,
So
which I mean also came in that set. I would
we
say.
only got the one Calo with, and I don't. Whatever one the other one comes in wasn't included. Unless for some reason the other one doesn't actually come with a hockey person, but I think this is a piece that was exclusive to those sets.
Yeah, that doesn't exist, and I'm just thinking of a different chest piece, but no, because he has that on top of the bell bottom armor piece, because it flowed really nicely.
Yes, the bell bottom.
Like I said,
Maybe
Eck,
you
when
can-
you're listening to this, please comment in here and link to your Flickr page so that people can see
You'll be
it.
seeing him on
So
the
we're
weekend.
programmed.
Just take a look.
Yeah, but this way the viewers will know that I'm right.
You and
The
them
viewers
see.
need to know I'm
I
right.
thought
I need
you
to
wanted to know you're right.
validate myself in front of strangers.
I thought you were just trying to confirm your own beliefs.
Nah, my beliefs are already set in mostly plastic. So, honestly, but actually, when you were talking about the Roshi foot, that is, I would say, is the next, I would say, most useful Bonk piece is feet.
I used
Broadly
to be broadly speaking.
feet.
Honestly,
Because
feet
I
as a
will say this:
whole-
in the Bionicle community, you do not use feet for feet. You use feet for thighs. You use feet for legs. Feet for chest. Feet for
I've seen them
heads.
used for lower. I've done them on lower legs, upper legs,
lower arms. I've
lower
seen.
arms, upper arms, in the body. I have a whole mock that's just trying to use as many as possible.
And
It has
if you
his
look at
head as
Brutaka
one.
and Maxios, they can use the hand, the right
Feet
feet.
can be used for anything. Though I have noticed, over the last couple of years, I rarely use feet now. If I do use feet, it's probably a Paraka or even an Inika foot, but not a Paraka. Actually, yeah, it is Paraka claws. I mean, I love the Toamata foot, but I do find sometimes that's, and same with like the socket is a little low for like making like a body.
I have one problem with the Tomata foot, with mocking with it, and that is the sole fact that a friction socket cannot attach to it.
That is annoying.
It's a very minor thing, but there's been a couple times because it's such an older socket. It was also designed way before, which makes makes the socket a very sturdy,
but the friction
strong
socket I think does attach to a Borak foot though.
No, it also has the same sort of level of flaring out.
Oh no, I'm thinking he doesn't have that. He has the Vaki body. That's what it's attached to.
Yeah,
I was
so it's
thinking
like-
something.
But I would say the Toa foot, let's be honest, is the best foot.
It's got a
But
great
it's not-
design.
It's the best looking foot. It has the most versatility, but as a useful piece outside of its original purpose, I would say maybe.
Found it like I don't usually do, but I've seen people have used that for lower arms, lower legs,
Let's be honest.
upper legs.
Feet in
Sometimes
general.
the socket can make it a little off, but I love the aesthetic of that foot. But I do find that I don't use feet as like
It has axle.
filler as much as I used
Honestly,
to.
any Bionicle piece that has an axle connection infinitely has become more useful.
Yes.
It just saves so many parts. It's just like, okay, and even if you just have one axle connection, that could just make something 10 times more sturdy.
I mean, I think the reason I don't use it as much anymore is because mostly I'm very heavy into Technic, sockets and balls, and then like actual armor pieces tend to work pretty fine. I've been finding for me.
I mean, yeah, armor pieces are, with pretty much Technic, socket, and armor piece, that's all you really need at the end of the day. Like, you can build Bionicle models without having to use any other standard torsos, hip piece, limbs, and still make it look like a Bionicle mock. Which, Let's be honest. When it comes, okay, well, this question is: are limbs or body parts more useless? Because I've used bodies as limbs, but I've also used limbs as bodies.
I mean, it depends what body part and which limb.
Okay, let's be honest. The most useless limb is the BIONICLE leg.
Agreed.
Because it has.
I only use that if I've got nothing else.
When it comes down to a standard BIONICLE build, it's the best leg for a standard set to have because
as a leg,
it's a little bit bulk. It has a little bit more support in the knee, and the kneecap looks great. Like, it's a good looking leg.
Aesthetically, I like it, but since I try very hard not to use standard limbs and limbs, it is the last one I'm going to use because sometimes, occasionally. You know, especially if you're trying to make a thought colored thing, you might
recently I even used it on Prime.
I was gonna say you might even use a couple per Aka lower legs to make the body because that's the only color you have to work with.
I find because it's not great. Like the most useful limb, of the, I would say the kneecaps, the lower leg style, not like 2001 style, is like the Roxy leg. It's got 3 pinholes. It's decently long, but it's also not too busy, so nothing blocks anything. I
would say the one I like and tend to use most is either the Paraka lower leg, which is one I actually like by itself. So especially if I'm making a female character, I like using that. It gets the aesthetic I want. I do find certain pieces go over it nicely, like the KK2 armor.
The Paraka lower leg I do really like as an aesthetic, and using as a limb is my favorite. But because of some stuff on the back of the leg, it can limit posability occasionally,
but I think the one I find,
but it doesn't work with the other stuff other than a limb.
But the one I think I find most useful to work with is the Vaki leg.
The Vaki leg has fallen out of favor for me a little bit.
Oh, really?
It's just that little lip at the ankle that pisses me off. I find so many times it would work perfectly, but it just didn't have a little lip at the back of the ankle.
I think I kind of like that arm too because
I love how the piece looks.
You put it on a mock that's pre-designed or that's completely your own design.
It's nice and thick.
It's filled out and it's got the thickness. That's another thing. It's thicker than any of the other ones. Which, when you don't have any other limb options, you're stuck with a Roxy limb. You're like, the color's nice and it's probably maybe a more humanesque proportions. But then it just looks too scrawny. For the things we built
for me, for making more advanced mocks, I guess the Roxy leg's better at basically decorating, adding more to it. But the Vaki leg is a nicer aesthetic. Because I would say the Roxy leg's probably got one of the boringest aesthetics of a lot of the other limbs.
Which is somewhat in its favor. It means there's less things to potentially get in the way. It's smooth.
But if the Roxy's feeling a little unloved, don't worry. The other limb it has is one of the most useful limbs.
I have definitely
the Roxy arm.
Ever since Hero Factory came out, there was like a small boom where that was great because you could finally use that as an arm or something because you had a piece that could connect to it with the proper sockets. Because this was obviously before I had an abundance of balls and lift arms. But then it kind of just... It just kind of disappeared.
The thing about the Roxy arm is it's got a nice L shape.
Yes.
It sticks out just enough. It's got enough
it's got a lot of clearance. Roxy arm. I was thinking the upper leg.
No, I'm talking about the arm
here. The upper leg has kind of had a resurgence.
Okay, the upper leg's useful. It's a nice piece on its own, but...
It's limited in color.
And I do find it can be a little awkward, and it's like... But the Roxy arm...
Because of Gen 2, the upper leg kind of became null and void, but yes, the arm has really become...
Well, first off, let's just acknowledge the greatness that it lasted from Throwbots from 99 to Robo Riders in 2000. It went through the 10-year BIONICLE run to 2010, and made it all the way to 2011 with the first wave of Hero Factory.
I believe we were discussing off camera one day, but I'm pretty sure the Voya Nui wave was the only wave of BIONICLE that did not utilize that piece somewhere.
That is correct. It was the end 2010 with the stars, but...
that hardly counts.
But yeah, the 9 full years of BIONICLE almost all use this limb piece in various different means. You know, it was like 2001 was using it just as an old Throwbot piece. You know, for limbs, fine, whatever. 2002, I think the box, the Exoto was the only set that used it. Okay, nothing too crazy.
Exoto, really?
One of the limbs is that one. Which I think was the only set from that year, and Poitanuva. Then, the Roxy used it in 2003, dark gray, cool, and they look great.
You would even think that it was made for the Roxy.
Honestly, sometimes I forget that it wasn't.
We do call it the Roxy arm.
It's like, then it was used with, actually, did 2004 use it at all?
2004 is Metru.
Yeah. Because Nibok didn't.
Nidikiraka.
Technically, no, it was using the Kratu, a small polyed egg.
Okay.
So it kind of did. The
well,
Vizirac the Vizirac brought it back, honestly.
Yeah.
They brought new colors. Even Maxilos used it. Biddle used it. And then Scopio used the pair.
Scopio, yep.
But it's the fact that, because it lasted so long, and
it even made it to Hero Factory for the first wave.
It lasted over a decade, which means, and like I said, I was saying, it has a nice L shape, so it works great for upper bodies, upper limbs, cankles. But the big thing is, it comes in so many colors.
The funny thing is, despite the weird jagged L shape, sometimes, you can make it work for a lower leg. I find it's great for shoulder and upper arms because it has a good angle for posability. Though
it definitely thrives in there.
Filling it out, especially in an upper arm, is tricky, and it's not something I've always managed to succeed with great success.
It's not a piece that wants to be useful.
It certainly doesn't lend itself to bulkier, but
it challenges you a little bit.
I use them in the core of body. I have a whole Toa team with that as the core of their body, so that was their shoulders and chest.
A mock based on the Dark Crystal Skeksis.
Yes.
And I use those for the lower arms. I'm like, hey, these work perfectly fine for this. But it's and the best thing was they came in white. They come in black, red, blue, green, lime, yellow, and even purple. Which, amazingly enough, my self-mock doesn't actually use purple. Neither versions of it does. None of my versions of me use it in purple. I have other creations.
If I were to try making an extremely purple creation, I would definitely try to use that in the core of the body for two reasons. One, purple. Two, it means the shoulders can be sockets, which are also purple.
Always appreciated.
They're not. That's the only purple ball joint, if I'm correct, in that shade.
Yeah, but with those limbs, because basically I would say there are about 5 sort of I'm gonna call them one-piece limbs. You have the Throwbot limb, the Toa leg, the Toa sword arm, or a Nua arm, or whatever you want to call that. Yeah. You have the Metronui Matoran limb, and the Borak limb.
Borak is nice because it's got a right angle.
And axle connections.
It has I wish the axle connections were at a different angle, though. Sometimes.
There are sometimes, but I would say the Borak limb, I would say, it's less useful as a limb than
it's not the Metronui, but it works well in shoulder. I would say because it's
the
a
great shoulder.
The Metronui is way better because it's much more compact, but that one does have its
place. That's why I like the Borak ones, because the axle is longer, so it gives a little bit more of you got more breathing room.
Depending how your mock's built and size. And also color.
But
it's got
what I've been impressed by is I would have limited. But if you asked me a few years ago how I would have thought it would be useful, I would say giant people's fingers. That was a classic use.
That is a good classic.
Shoulders and maybe filler. That's where I would have ended it. However, I have been proven that it still has another use. Hip. You've proven that you can use it as a crotch hip area.
I did make a Toa. I recreated the Toa Nuva, and because the core of their body is not lime or black, it's green. I needed something to use in their crotch, and I was limited in parts and also what to use in this color, and still to attach legs, and I used it as their hips.
And again, because the Borak and Borak call all the different limbs, that's 12 colors right off the bat.
Covers pretty much all bases.
And then you even got dark blue, key orange, and dark green later down the line.
Was there dark red?
Dark red? Yes.
Okay.
Because that also came with
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty much. I guess the big thing when it comes down to useful Bongo parts is pieces that, aren't very large and come in a lot of colors. Because Borak limbs, Throwbot limbs, sockets, all basically come in a lot of colors, and they're all relatively small.
I will say, though, when you get better at building, you kind of shirk on the big, large, standard pieces. Occasionally you might use an Ika body in the core of a large mock.
When you go back to basics sometimes, and you build basic something with just a standard Toa body with a few modifications, something that's just the most satisfying.
No, I was going to say, we've expanded our knowledge, so we don't need to use these standard pieces. We can make our own. But, sometimes that results in a large collection of bodies and limbs. So you know, occasionally you actually want to challenge yourself.
That's why
Let's use these.
That's why I need to finish building Dentar. It'll clear out my buckets of all my large black
I
bodies
made
I have.
Toa Joven's whole team, and they all use several, not one, several bodies. Like
Specifically the Abmatoran bodies, which
3 of them use.
let's be honest, one of the most useless. At one point, I would have said most useless, but I'm turning around.
I'm coming around on them because they're slightly more compact. A lot of ball connections, which is useful, especially now.
Axle connections.
Especially when you're not restricting yourself to it has to be like completely secure. As long as it's got balls like in shape,
Yeah.
it's actually good for
Also,
especially raw heat.
So pretty much, I know Eck had basically a
You were saying that
the built model. He wanted a slightly narrower shoulders, but wanted just to use kind of like a bigger piece to fill it up.
and even like the Metru lower, basically short of using a ball or the ball on the 2 axle connectors, it's really hard to get narrow shoulders
Yes.
or narrower shoulders.
But anywho, my recording space is pretty much filled up, so we'll have to end that here. Plus, we got that 30-minute mark, so I'm happy with that. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Let's see if we could. I'm trying to reach that 100 subscribers by October, so let's make that happen. And at 100 subscribers, I will bury an Anua in the dirt. So
We'll have to find some dirt, but it'll happen.
I think I can find some dirt. But anyways, thanks for watching. I've been your host, Onvermel, and we are retiring from the night.